Now, Uber have got a new product launching this Friday right around the country called Uber for Teens. At the moment, you can't put a teenager into an Uber on their own. They've got to be accompanied by an adult. But as of Friday, they will have drivers who have completed working with children checks who will be allowed to pick up children 13 and over on their own. The idea is to help parents who are busy, so you can stick your 13-year-old in an Uber and they can go to violin practice or to their football game, and parents can track the Uber ride as they go to make sure the kids are okay. So this is being promoted as a great service for mums and dads who are busy, can't take the kids everywhere that they've got to go, stick them in an Uber. Uber will look after them. I am not a fan of this at all. And I got to say to Uber, I mean, I'm sure they're launching it with the best of intentions, but the timing is terrible. How many stories have we heard in the last month about working with children checks that either weren't done properly or were done, and yet people with, shall we say, checkered histories with children have been allowed access to kids anyway. So I'm not sure many people are thinking, oh, he's got a working with children check is going to make them feel that safe. The other thing, though, as a parent is one of the times that you get to spend with your kid, because life is frenetic, but time in the car, you actually get to talk to your son or your daughter. I'm not sure this is a great parenting idea where you just stick your kid in an Uber and you allow the Uber driver to have their attention for the next half hour as they go off to soccer. It might be convenient. I just don't know that it's great parenting.
No, I disagree. I think this will be great. And I mean, the alternative is these kids are on public transport. When my parents couldn't take me somewhere, I would take a bus or a train or whatever. And I think being in one Uber with a driver that you know, that you can track, that you know at least has some sort of vetting, even if the working with children check system is flawed, overall, it does still work quite well. So I think this is far better than sending them on public transport. In fact, I would say the risk here is that they lose the ability to use public transport and then Uber becomes the status quo. But currently, I wish my parents spent time driving me to various activities. They're probably watching right now, but they definitely did not. It was survival of the fittest in my household, and I would have loved this service.
I mean, there's an argument, I suppose, that on public transport there's other people around, so you potentially got strapping numbers. It's a deterrent for people to do dodgy things.
And you go with mates on public transport.
Yeah, well, it's if you've got mates. Some kids don't have mates. So, you know, I remember...
Thanks,
funny story. I had to teach my brother the first time he took the bus, right? He was all trepidatious about taking the bus. I was an independent child and he wasn't. You know, I loved going away for the weekend, camping with a mate or spending the week at my grandparents or whatever. And he wasn't that sort of kid. So when he was faced with the first opportunity or need, really, to have some independence because mum went back to work full-time when I became a teenager, he was like, oh, my God, what do I do? And so I think that feeds into part of this, right? It's a parental decision whether or not you want your kid to use this Uber for teens. When I saw Uber for teens, I thought it was like rugby 12s or something for a minute. But I think we live in a world now where children are infantilised for too long and they're not given any responsibility. And so once upon a time, you know, in the school holidays, maybe you're old enough for this to have been your experience, James, you know, you get on your bike and you went out and caught up with your mates and carried on for the day.
Be home before dark.
Yeah, exactly. Mum said, be home for dinner, right? Yeah. And that was the only rule. They weren't worried about where you were. They didn't have a tracking device on you. You didn't have a smartphone. There was no concern whatsoever as long as you came home for dinner. Whereas now the kids got to be tracked all the time. They've got to be within earshot. You've got to have an eye on them. You can't play cricket in the street because you're going to get run over. On and on and on and on it goes. So we've created this world where kids actually don't have any responsibility anymore. Once upon a time, a kid getting somewhere on their own at 13 would have been wholly unremarkable.
The only problem with what you've said is, it's twofold. You've given a bit of a caricature of, you know, how bad parenting is these days. You've got to have a tracking device on you, etc., etc.
Well, I'm just saying that's sort of what.
But you've also only given one side of the story, right? The culture is different. Society is different. Traffic is much worse. For example, we rode our bikes everywhere.
Well, don't do it, you know, on Parramatta Road, but...
Well, I would have ridden on main roads back in the day, but these days, even now I wouldn't ride on main roads having been hit by a car.
Indeed.
So I think the world has changed. I take your point, but I don't know. Would you put your 13-year-old daughter in an Uber?
Well, but I suppose if the alternative is that your 13-year-old daughter's walking down the street, I mean, they could get mugged, robbed, raped by anyone.
Of course they should be in an Uber. When I was 14, I went on exchange to Reunion Island, which is in Africa, for 6 months by myself. That was at 14. At 13, take an Uber all you want. I think kids are way more independent and responsible. But